Welcome to the Third and Short podcast. Unlike Ryan Dinwiddie, I'm not trying to tank in my first season doing this podcast. I'm your boy, Zaky Sportz. We got a jam-packed episode. We're talking news on Levi Mitchell's return from injury. We're talking Samuel Emilus. We're talking Jim Popp to the REDBLACKS. We're going to give you game picks for each and every game of the CFL season, and we're going to break down the age-old question of who would win in a cage match between Mike O'Shea and Corey Mace. But first, let's head to the news. The Ottawa REDBLACKS have hired Jim Popp to be a senior football advisor. Popp is a five-time Grey Cup champion. For the past few years, he's been the vice president of player personnel for the UFL. We all know what's been going on with the REDBLACKS. Adam Shara, their president, he stepped down. The VP of football operations, Sean Burke, has been fired. It appears to me, with the language that they're using, that this is only a temporary position for Jim Popp. There's a lot of talk of like, oh, it's just for the remainder of the 2026 season. I think what that means is Ryan Dinwiddie and his staff are still going to do a lot of the day-to-day stuff, but they're bringing in Jim Popp because they need that expertise from those American players. This is how you rebuild in the CFL, okay? It can't happen in one offseason. A weird thing about the CFL is that if your team is bad enough early on, you could start making moves that actually determine how your team is going to be next year with some free agent signings. We've seen the REDBLACKS have let go of a lot of genuine starters on their team, guys that were playing really important snaps. And the reason why they're doing that is so that they can cycle in new players. There's not a crazy draft like there is in the NFL where it's like, okay, we're going to restock our team from that. No, you have to go boots to the ground out there and find new players. And I think Jim Popp is perfect for this. First of all, the REDBLACKS they need to get some football in their system. They need to get some CFL in their system. They need to have these guys that I know you don't want to retread all these old dinosaurs all the time, but for 1 year to just have that infrastructure in there, I think it's a really smart move. And to get a guy who is directly tied to the UFL, who's watching all of those games, who knows all of the players in that league, and being able to bring those guys in as the season comes to a conclusion, get them some really important snaps, especially those DBs. You always need American DBs and maybe some receivers. Maybe those guys aren't going to be the guys that are going to be able to win you a game this year, but if they can get that valuable experience by the time they go into training camp next season, they can be absolutely flying. I just think this is where the rebuild begins. I think this is what they have to do. They're moving the deck chairs on the Titanic a little bit, but by the time next season rolls around, they're going to have real CFL people in all of those spots, and Ryan Dinwiddie is going to be able to install that CFL culture. So I think that's huge. They also announced that Jake Mayer will be starting again next week. Why? I know MBT, McLeod Bethel Thompson, is not getting people excited, but give the guy a chance. Get the Bryson Barnes out there. Get anybody. Max Duggan couldn't do it. Max Duggan is just sitting out there on the street. You're telling me that Max Duggan doesn't deserve another chance to play under Ryan Dinwiddie in Ottawa? Very strange move. Up next, we had Samuel Emilus suffered an injury last week late in the game for the Rough Riders. He was obviously coming off the 6-game injured list. Corey Mace says it doesn't look like this is a season-ending injury. Johnny Johnson III also didn't practice this week with a head injury. Losing Samuel Emilus like this, a guy who, unfortunately, alongside his compatriot in the Rough Riders receiving corps, Keon Schaefer-Baker, they have a tendency to get a little bit injured there. So they've got to figure some things out with the wide receiving corps, and that's why they made a corresponding move to get Shamar Bridges from the Hamilton Tiger Cats in there. It was a little bit confusing as to why Shamar wasn't getting a lot of play. I know that early on in his career, Levi Mitchell took a huge liking to Shamar Bridges. He had 83 catches for 933 yards and 4 TDs in his first season. So I think that there's a chance that he can step in there, a guy who's familiar with the CFL, who knows how to play, who's had a connection with a veteran quarterback like that. He might step in there and have some really good things to do for that offense, and they need receiver help at this point. Since they haven't had KSB and Samuel Emilus in the lineup, you could tell that it's made a huge hit on what they've been able to do. So I think Shamar Bridges is a really good answer for them. I'm still surprised that Geno Lewis has not signed with anybody in the CFL. He's only 32, 33 years old. You're telling me this guy's absolutely cooked? I don't think so. And finally, in the news, Scott Milanovich gave an update on Levi Mitchell's return. He says, I have no update in terms of time frame, which he says I have no update, but it's an update of having no update. His recovery progress is not decreasing my optimism, that's for sure. I think it's still probably a little bit of a long shot, which as a Hamilton Tiger Cats fan, despite the fact that I'm wearing a Saskatchewan Roughriders t-shirt right now, that's very disappointing to hear. I think it's obvious that it's been a long shot the entire time, but there are certain little things like I've talked about it a million times where Bo Levi goes and talks about taking the walking boot off and putting full weight on his ankle. You see a video with SiriusXM come out this week covering Bo Levi Mitchell's rehab process. And you could just tell that he is 1000% locked in on this rehab. He is trying to do everything in his power. One thing that a lot of people I don't think realize is that one of the biggest parts about being a professional athlete is rehab and attacking rehab in the right way. And I think we look back on a lot of guys and say, oh, this injury, it kind of ruined their career. They never got back to that. You want to know why they never got back to that? It's a lot of guys that are not doing rehab properly. So the fact that Bo has been through big injuries, he knows the ways to attack rehab and how he has to get there. I think that's a huge, feather in his cap. I also think he knows that he doesn't want to play for 4 or 5 more seasons. He wants to play 1, maybe 2 more seasons. This might be one of his last chances. I still think the Tiger Cats have an absolutely incredible team. So I still think there's a chance he's going to push it. He's going to try and figure it out. That will be dependent on whether or not the Tiger Cats can get into a playoff position and maybe sneak in and get some luck on that side. So I'll keep you up to date on all the Bo Levi Mitchell news. Now we're going to head in to the game picks for this week. We've got the Montreal Alouettes taking on the Winnipeg Blue Bombers in Winnipeg at Princess Auto Stadium. The Bombers have lost 3 of their last 4 games. They're giving up an average of 35.5 points a game in those games, and I don't know if they have the firepower on offense to keep up with that. Brady Oliveira, yes, he's still very good. Zach Collaros, this was never his game, okay? He was never supposed to be a guy that was, going to be a Davis Alexander or a Nathan Rourke throwing for 400 yards and 5 touchdowns. Zach Collaros is a really good quarterback, but he kind of needs everything that the Blue Bombers have had around him for all those years, or he needs some extremely explosive wide receivers. And, Tim White's good, Nick Dembski's good, but it's not Kenny Lawler. And that defense, Willie Jefferson's still good, but that defense is nothing close to what they've had in Winnipeg under Mike O'Shea. So there's really no human way. There's no reasonable person that would tell you that the Winnipeg Blue Bombers are going to win this game. So I'm going to take the Montreal Alouettes. I just don't think I don't think the Bombers have the firepower to keep up with Davis Alexander. And then on Saturday afternoon, we have the Hamilton Tiger Cats taking on the Calgary Stampeders at McMahon Stadium in Calgary, Alberta. This is as close to a must-win game as it gets for the Tiger Cats because they aren't fighting for third place in the East, okay? They're fighting to beat whoever takes the crossover, and they're pretty much knotted out. They're a little bit behind all 3 of Winnipeg, Calgary, and BC. BC is surging right now. Calgary is just too good to lose all these games going down the stretch. You have to figure they're going to figure it out. Winnipeg, I think they're going to finish in the basement in the West. So the Tiger Cats have to win this game. They already lost with Harrison Frost at starting QB to the Calgary Stampeders, 44-20. That was a brutal game. They just got completely outmanned. It looks like Dedrick Mills and Vernon Adams Jr. are going to play this week. So when you have all that firepower, as good as the Hamilton Tiger Cats defense is, it's just how are they going to be able to keep up with that many points? I'm not sure they're going to be able to do it. For me, I would play Harrison Frost in this game. Try and see if you can control the ball a little bit. Try and see if you can get Keandre Smith and Kenny Lawler back involved into the game plan. That being said, I'm taking the Calgary Stampeders in this game. On Saturday night, we've got 2 teams going in different directions. We've got the Toronto Argonauts traveling to Mosaic Stadium to take on the Saskatchewan Roughriders. Are the Argos actually turning a corner and becoming a good team? They beat the Tiger Cats last week. Maybe that doesn't mean much now. Maybe that doesn't mean much with Trey Ford and Harrison Frost and Jake Dolagala playing musical chairs at the quarterback position. Meanwhile, we've talked a little bit about the Riders. Since they've suffered those injuries in their secondary and at wide receiver, they just haven't looked like the same team. We saw Trevor Harris getting visibly frustrated last week, smashing his helmet on the sidelines. The guy's 56 years old, so the temper gets a little bit shorter at that age, but I think it's going to be a really tough, revealing matchup for the Riders. It could lead to just like a straight up downfall. I'm going to take the upset here. I'm going to take the Argos winning over the Saskatchewan Roughriders. And finally, on Sunday night, we've got the BC Lions traveling to our nation's capital, Ottawa, Ontario, to take on the Red Blacks. And this is maybe a good time to get some reading in, okay? Maybe a good time to take your significant other out on a date. Go for a late night bike ride. Sit in a dark room alone and ponder all the mistakes that you've made in your life, because we know how this one is going to end. There is no chance in hell that the Ottawa Redblacks, with Jake Maier as their starting quarterback, are going to take down the absolutely surging Nathan Rourke and the BC Lions. That game's we're on to week 14 or whatever the hell week we're coming up to. And finally, I put out the call to you, to the people, the wedge heads, to give me some questions, some thoughts, some hot takes for this week in the CFL. And I'm just going to answer them sort of rapid fire, 3-minute drill. Does every CFL podcast that's ever existed have a 3-minute drill segment? Can you do a CFL podcast without having a 3-minute drill segment? I put out this podcast and one of the guys in the comments was like, hey, is there any chance we could do a quick little fixing of a rebrand on the Third and Short podcast? First of all, no. You know what I mean? My wife is a designer. She made these beautiful logos. We got the Iverwin Stadium in the background. He's like, oh, it's just similar to a lot of other CFL podcasts. Why do you think it's similar, pal? All right? Of course it's similar. We're trying to get people that's how people relate to the CFL. You can't make a CFL podcast and call it, the mighty Falcon flying. And that has nothing to do with Canadian football. It's called Third and Short so that when people see it, they're like, oh, that's obviously a CFL podcast. Also, what you didn't consider with the branding, Third and Short, the wedge. We got the wedge heads. We named the fans the wedge heads. So let's get into the wedge head questions of the week. Start the timer. Maybe we'll put some jaunty music behind this. I don't know. All right, first question. Corey Mace versus Mike O'Shea, one-on-one in a cage match. Who you got? This is a great question. Listen, Corey Mace obviously has the age advantage in this. If we're talking prime Mike O'Shea, prime Corey Mace, that's a completely different conversation. So you might think that it might be a smash for Corey Mace, but here's the thing. Mike O'Shea, you just get the feeling he's the kind of guy who, if he's at the bottom of the pile, he's going to bite somebody. He's going to try and snap one of your fingers off. He's going to try and fight and claw and scratch his way. I love Corey Mace. I don't want to get in a cage match fight with him, but I'm going with Mike O'Shea in this one. Question number 2. How many times out of 10 are you scoring on the wedge play at Third and Short on the 1-yard line? This is a great question. Okay. Listen, I'm in the gym. I'll pull the guns out. All right. I think that there's a chance, and I know I'm gritty. I know I'm gritty enough to make it at least once. I'm going to go 3 out of 10. I think 3 out of 10 times I can score a touchdown on that play. The big question is, will I be able to handle the snap? But I think if it's just pushing, if it's just momentum, I'm getting 3 out of the 10 of those. Maybe I'm dead wrong. I don't know. Question number 3, who's the better team? Davis Alexander and Jason Moss with the Red Blacks, or Ryan Dinwiddie and Jake Maier with the rest of the Alouettes? Another great question. I think in the CFL, the quarterback is so important that you're just always going to take the quarterback no matter what. So I think that Davis Alexander, Jason Moss, and the rest of the Red Blacks roster is taking down Ryan Dinwiddie, Jake Maier, and the rest of the Montreal Alouettes roster. Question number 4, over under 4.5 combined Grey Cups for the Rourke brothers, Kurtis and Nathan. Kurtis is currently in the NFL. I think he's going to be in the CFL eventually. Nathan could win it this year. That's a lot. Maybe Nathan gets 3, Kurtis gets 2. Those are 2 really well-run franchises. I'm going to go over, and I'm going to go somehow with the crossover at some point. Maybe the crossover would be eliminated. I don't know. I think I want to see a Rourke Grey Cup. Maybe, when Nathan eventually goes to the Hamilton Tiger Cats, which of course he will. We had a hot take for number 5. Hamilton would still have a losing record if Levi Mitchell didn't get hurt. Worst take I've ever heard. Hamilton has one of the best defenses in the league. They have an elite wide receiver core. They're winning games with basically no quarterback. Their quarterback situation is worse than the Ottawa REDBLACKS, and they have won 4 games this season. Absolutely ridiculous. Number 6, you get 2 weeks to practice, but you have to be the holder on the winning kick of the Grey Cup from 30 yards out. Is your team making that kick? Absolutely. Once again, I believe in myself. Obviously, the nerves are going to play a factor, but I think you give me 2 weeks. I put on those wide receiver gloves. I think I'm nailing those. I think I'm nailing those holds every time. I think I'm nailing them. Aliens land on Earth and understand the beauty of Canadian football. Which game do you show them? That's question number 7. This is a bit of a random one, but I'm going with the 2010 season opener rematch of the 13th man game between the Alouettes and the Rough Riders. This game is exactly what Canadian football is all about. You can watch it on YouTube. The Riders win 54-51 over the Owls in double overtime. Just everything you love about the CFL. Number 8, if Calgary could close out games, would they be top 2 in the CFL? Should both Dickinsons be fired? I still don't understand how Calgary is not one of the best teams of the CFL. And you look at a team that's added Damian Alford and Aju. My God, they should be absolutely flying. I think maybe for Dave Dickinson's mental health, he should be fired at the end of the year. Every single time I see him on the sidelines, he looks absolutely pissed off about every call, every play, everything that's going up. I think there needs to be a little cultural reset. I still think keep Dave Dickinson as the GM, allow him to do that, maybe relax a little bit, get the guy out to a cottage, let him have a couple of beers. He needs to chill out, okay? It's been a little too close for my entire life to the CFL. And number 9, how old would 56-year-old Trevor Harris need to be in order for you to be a better QB than he is? Well, let's see. Trevor Harris is currently 56, and he's a much better quarterback than I am right now. I think at 66, he's still a better quarterback than me. I feel like it's got to be 76 would be close because I don't think he would have any running ability, and maybe my best bet would be to just run it. I'm going to say when Trevor Harris is 78 years old, me and my current body, I'll be a better starting quarterback than he is. And that's it. Another little quick one. Mike, don't you love what we got going on here, okay? Listen, this is my first time trying these 2 formats. They're going to grow. They're going to evolve. But there's some real good seeds here. And you get all your CFL news, knowledge, information in 30 minutes between the 2 podcasts. Make it really easy. If you want to have someone in your life that's like, I want to follow the CFL, I don't know how to follow it, this is the podcast for them. Super easy listen. Thanks for listening. Love you guys. Talk to you soon.